Ooh, it's too good. What's up everyone? Today we're talking about the DJI Spark Drone, using it for kayaking, if it's good for kayaking, if it's been useful for me, and so on and so forth. So let's get right into it. I got this drone in March this year, 2018. I did a lot of research into whether I was going to buy this one or the more expensive Mavic Pro. I ended up going with this one for a few reasons. Reason number one was cost. You can get these pretty cheap. I got this one used on eBay for 500 bucks US, including 3 extra batteries and the controller. It came with a little bag, but I got rid of the little bag because it wasn't very useful. But we'll talk about that in a second. So cost-wise was reason number one why I bought this one instead of a more expensive Mavic Pro. At the time when I was getting it, I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. I wasn't sure how much I was going to use it. And I didn't want to spend like over $1,000 on something that I wasn't going to use that often or wasn't going to be that useful. And most importantly, I wasn't going to spend a big ton of money on something that like had a high percentage of maybe crashing, losing in the river, which sounds really stupid, but that's happened to a bunch of my friends with a bunch of different drones. So I didn't want to spend too much early on, just in case I didn't use it, I didn't like it, or worst way, I crashed it into the river. So I went for this one mostly because it kind of met that balancing point between a fairly low cost but still having 1080 video, which is what I wanted. Since I've got it in March, I've used it for a bunch of really cool kayaking stuff, a bunch of kind of scenic shots. I've used it quite a lot. If you have watched any of the other videos actually on this channel, you'll probably end up seeing one of the shots from it. So kayaking, scenery, kind of all sorts. I put together a little reel that we're going to watch right now. Overall, I've really enjoyed this drone. It's been super fun to use. It's very easy to fly. Like, I've never had a drone before. I don't have any experience flying drones, and it was super straightforward. It has a beginner mode. Like, this one has a remote. You can use it without the remote, but I don't know why you would. The remote's pretty good. And then it just pairs to your phone, and the phone's like a screen. So you can see what the camera sees the whole time, and you're kind of ripping it around. Which is really good. You kind of have a pretty good idea about what you're looking at and where you're going. The app on your phone works fairly well. I would say that I've definitely encountered a few bugs with it, and a few times I've been sitting on the shoreline of a river not being able to make it connect properly, or having to just not fly that day because I couldn't make it work properly. But that's only happened a couple of times probably since I've had it. Overall, really good user experience. The drone connects to the remote via Wi-Fi, and I did quite a bit of research about this beforehand because this is like one of the big downsides of this drone, is that it's a Wi-Fi connection to the controller and not a radio connection, which means it has quite a much shorter range. In my initial research, it seemed like a lot of people having this issue where your drone would disconnect from your phone, which is super scary, and the screen goes black. To start with, I didn't have any problems with this. It's happened to me 2-3 times in all the times I've flown it, and I've flown it quite a bit. Luckily, all 3 of those times I could see where it was, and I just flew it back home. So it wasn't a big deal, which is great. There are a couple of other downsides to that, as well as the kind of shorter range. Just to finish on the range thing, Although that is kind of a downside, like it's not a big problem for me. Like it hasn't been a persistent problem. It's happened like, you know, 2 times out of 200 maybe, or 300 flights. So it's not like a big deal to me, at least. That's like, I can live with that. It does have a couple drawbacks. Like it has a much smaller battery than all the other drones in the DJI family. Like on average, I get like probably 10 to 12 minutes of flight time out of each battery versus like almost 20 on the bigger drones, I think. So you do need the extra batteries. Luckily mine came with this sweet like battery charger, so I can charge 3 at one time, which is clutch. I don't think I'd be able to have this drone feasibly with just 1 battery, because you'd never get to use it. A couple of other downsides that I don't love, pretty much because it's so small, anytime there's any bit of wind, it's like getting buffered around like a lot. Which mostly is fine. Like most of the time I'm flying over water, which is scary, because if it crashes into water. But it does mean there's like less trees around generally. I've mostly been flying here in Canada on wider rivers, like kind of away from trees. I think if you lived in an environment where you were always in much narrower, like kind of more tree overhang type stuff, it would be a bit scarier on a windy day. But mostly out here, I haven't had too much of an issue with it, but it definitely does get pushed around a lot in the wind, and if you're not paying attention, it can just suddenly be like meters away from where you thought it was, just because it's kind of a windy day, which sucks. So you do have to kind of bear that in mind a little bit, and it's one of the trade-offs you make for such a small size of drone. The small size though is a huge plus point to me. Like it increases portability factor of this drone is really, really good. Like I said, I got rid of the bag it came from, because the bag was kind of too big. It had like the drone and the remote all together. And I got these 2 boxes from Amazon. I think they were like 20 bucks, something like that. Anyway, the drone goes like pretty neatly in that one. It fits 2 batteries in, the remote goes in this one. And because it's separate, they're separately sized, it means they can fit into my dry bag quite a bit better. So I can be going out on days kayaking with just that in my watershed bag, which is a pretty small package and pretty easy to manage. I can even fit this in there with my Sony camera that I'm filming this on right now. That's my like kind of regular camera that I have with me most of the time. So I can comfortably have both of those things with me together, which is really, really valuable to me, because it means there's options to fly and get that cool drone shot and the cool drone perspective, as well as getting like kind of regular camera shots, which is tight. Like I said, when I got it, I wasn't sure how much I was going to like it and how much I was going to use it. And to be honest, especially through like kayaking spring, like big waves around Ottawa, around Quebec, I use it a ton, because I got to go to a lot of places that I've been at a lot of times. I've taken photos and video at a lot of times, and kind of see them from a new, different perspective, just because you're able to fly around the river a lot more. And I didn't think I would enjoy that as much as I did, but I actually probably ended up using this as much or more than my regular camera, which is a huge surprise. If you know me, you know I'm like on my camera most of the time, so it's weird to see my camera living in the bag a lot more, my drone being like kind of my, not my main camera, but getting close to what, like something I use really a lot more, which is sick. Another downside to this drone is it's not super fast. So if you're trying to do kind of follow shots, you do have to kind of plan a little bit like where you start and where you're going to finish, because it's not always fast enough to keep up with the things you're tracking. In the regular mode, if you look like switch into the sport mode, it's a lot faster, but it's a bit harder to kind of maneuver because it has all the sensors turned off. And then the final downside to it, because it's the lower end drone, it does have a lower spec camera. Like it does shoot 1080, which is nice, but I quite often find that I'm not like in love with the video quality that comes out, the dynamic range. So the difference between white and dark is sometimes not that good, and sometimes the whites, especially of like big waves, are like kind of crunchy, and I'm like, oh, I don't love it. And I don't love that you can't shoot in slow motion either. Like that would be really ideal. So on the whole, I've been really, really happy with the DJI Spark. I probably will sell it in the future and get a bigger drone, probably a Mavic Pro or Pro 2 or one of the slightly like sized up models, and just compromise portability a little bit for higher quality camera and slightly better battery life. But if you're just looking for a drone to see how much you'll use it and see if you'll like it without making a huge investment, you can pick these up really cheap right now. And I do highly recommend it. I've had a great time flying this drone, and I'm probably going to fly it a bunch more until I ultimately come to sell it. So keep in mind, a drone might not be right for you. Like, you might live in an area close to a lot of national parks or a lot of places where you can't fly it, and do keep in mind that you can't fly your drone everywhere. There are limitations, and make sure you check with whatever country and whatever area you're in where you can fly and what's permitted and what's not, because it is still like a small aircraft essentially, and it's governed by a lot of the same rules. So check that out. Like, know before you go. Not knowing is not an excuse to just like do something illegal, and there's some pretty hefty fines you can get now, especially in Canada. So you do have to kind of be a bit careful about where you're flying. All right, that's kind of all I had to say this week about the DJI Spark. I really liked it. I've used it a lot as a kayaking drone. Let me know your thoughts on it. Have you tried a Spark? Do you love it? Did you get a bigger drone? Is it cumbersome and annoying? I'm interested. I'm in the market for a new one. Let me know. Come at me in the comments down below. If you love this video, please subscribe. Just click my face there. It should be on the screen. And I will see you next week. New videos almost every week. See you out there. Peace.